Why specifically does the American government support Israel? How could an administration disengage itself from these policies? Is this an imperialist? I can't read the writing. Okay, but it's all the questions around the American role. Next card is, what is the reason for this intense love affair between USA and Israel? Why do most US politicians seek the blessing of AIPAC? Next question is, given the history of our own country, USA, which is characterized by terror and annexation of the land of indigenous people in this hemisphere, what hope is there that the American government will ever be moved to abide by human rights, international law now in the Middle East? And there's several more in the same vein. You get the basic question. So, panelists want to speak to that?
Well, I tried to speak to this in a very concise way in my presentation, and I actually have an article in the current issue of Revolution that's available in the lobby along the lines of, this is not about the Israel lobby, and it's definitely not about the Jews. It is about U.S. imperialist interests, and I tried to briefly trace the whole role that Israel has played as an enforcer for U.S. imperialism and how integral that is to the world of, as I put it, pain and suffering today. I mean, the whole, you have to ask yourself, what was Israel doing in Guatemala or Nicaragua or South Africa to really understand the role that Israel plays as a hitman for U.S. imperialism in the world today?
Now I have something to say because I disagree with that comment in terms of it's not about the Israel lobby. Every candidate for Congress is approached by AIPAC, and they are asked to sign a pledge or write a statement. That statement is a statement of support for Israel. And so that's why you get, out of 535 possible votes, you only get 5 votes that represent the values of the people who really want peace and want the United States to be an honest broker in that part of the world. In addition to having to write this statement or sign this pledge, the contents of the pledge, which is what I was approached with back in 1992 when I was a candidate for Congress, is that you're going to support the continued military domination of Israel, of the region, that you support Jerusalem as the capital city, that you will support the continued funding of the state, whether it's the economic needs of the state of Israel as well as the military needs of the state of Israel. Now you can go to every website of every member of Congress and they'll have some little statement. And then you have AIPAC sitting in all of the House and Senate. I can't speak to the Senate, but I'm sure they operate the same on the Senate side. But certainly every one of the House International Relations Committee meetings where there is the possibility of Israel coming up, AIPAC is there taking notes on who says what. Every letter that is generated in Congress pertaining to Israel or one of the states that Israel supports or one of the states that Israel doesn't support, they are there taking names as to who signs on to the letter. And this is not only in the International Relations Committee, this is the Appropriations Committee, this is every aspect of the budget of the United States, whether it's the $60 million that's placed as a line item in the State Department budget so that anybody anywhere in the world who wants to relocate to Israel can do so, thanks to U.S. taxpayers. Now, when you begin to read the legislation, as I did, which was probably one of my first problems, then you're bound to have questions about what all of this means. But now, with respect to AIPAC, all I said to them was, let me get elected. Let me learn the issues. Let a decision in the interest of my district, my constituents, my state, and my country. And that wasn't good enough for AIPAC. Yes, this is about AIPAC. This is about the pro-Israel lobby that manifests.
I just want to mention that AIPAC is not the only Jewish lobby group on the Hill. There are also groups like Americans for Peace Now, and J Street, and Brit Tzedek, and those of you in this audience who believe in our vision of peace in the Middle East have to support those organizations.
I just want to make clear that AIPAC doesn't represent Israel. I covered Yitzhak Rabin's campaign to be prime minister. And by then, AIPAC had signed on with Likud. And they sent over money, and even pollsters and campaign workers to help in the campaign against Rabin. AIPAC, long ago, probably predating Shamir, but certainly beginning with Shamir, adopted the right-wing, messianic with a small m, vision that we see in Kadima, Ehud Olmert, Netanyahu, Livni, Sharon, the rest. And Rabin hated them. When I was at Rabin's inauguration as prime minister, he refused to invite AIPAC. Because by then, AIPAC was driving a hard-right, imperialist, messianic vision that did not square with his own vision of how to establish and build peace with the Palestinians. And there's a famous story told me by a member of Rabin's office that on his first trip to Washington, he was in the Shoreham, one of the big hotels in Washington, and several AIPAC officials talked to his aides and asked for a meeting. And Rabin, who, if anyone knows Rabin, was extremely profane, kept a bottle of whiskey in his bottom drawer, smoked one cigarette after another, turned and said, "I don't talk to scumbags."
Now, interestingly, Mr. Weiss mentioned these other groups that have formed to serve as a counter voice to the sheer dominant position that AIPAC has in Washington. Vanessa Redgrave read a message from Uri Avnery. Well, I heard that Uri Avnery was doing a tour of the United States, and I didn't know who he was. I learned that he was a former member of the Knesset, one of the foremost human rights activists in Israel, and so I decided that as a member of Congress, I needed to know this person. I needed to hear him, and that my colleagues on the Hill also needed to have the benefit of hearing this person. So, for the first time ever, Uri Avnery was invited to Capitol Hill by me. We had a press conference with the Unity Coalition, and that press conference included, among others, we had 12 organizations represented there: Jews Against the Occupation, Not in My Name, Women in Black, Jewish Voices for Peace. We had all of the coalition members of the Unity Coalition to either send a statement of support or to send a representative. This was a wonderfully well-attended press conference. We had 7 television cameras there, including C-SPAN's own camera. Well, the press conference never showed on C-SPAN, and I was vilified in my local Georgia press by the Anti-Defamation League because they said that I was associating with fringe Jewish groups. Now, how is it that a group that represents peace is fringe?